sacred sexuality, tantric sexuality. What is that exactly? That's a question that I am concerned about, maybe like a year, or it was the first time that I heard something about sacred sexuality. And welcome women on my channel. I'm Corinne Rust, and today I have a dear friend of mine as a guest. It's Dalia, and she is actually an expert in tantric sexuality. And she and her husband, they have a platform where they teach about tantric sexuality, about spirituality, and some other things. She will tell about it by herself later. And her husband actually goes in the main group that my husband is leading, and they teach each other, yeah, what they know, what knowledge they have. And they started, and Jason, he started to teach the men there, or tell about the tantric sexuality. And then, yeah, my husband Oliver came home and told me all these things, and I'm like, oh, this sounds so interesting. So I thought I invite Dalia and ask her all the questions that I have around sacred tantric sexuality. So welcome, Dalia, again. And could you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background?
Well, thank you, first of all, having me here. It's a pleasure, and I always enjoy our talks and spending time with you, and whatever I can, my humble knowledge, whatever it can contribute to your community, I'm honored and happy to do that. Well, introducing myself, where do I begin? It's always difficult. I am like you. I am also an artist in my heart and soul, and a fairy. I see energy everywhere. I feel energy everywhere. I'm very sensitive. And somehow I was guided in life by this natural feeling I always had, interconnectedness of everything. And I did many things in life. I studied many things. Oh gosh, in my 48 years, I taught children in school. I ran projects. I taught yoga. I ran businesses, but and I wrote books. But most of all, I am a mother, a wife, a sister, a daughter, and those roles are my favorite. And for me, they're sacred. And being present with these roles, including everything else, what I'm doing on the top of it, is my main path in this life.
Yeah, thank you. So then my next question will be, what inspired you to explore the practices of tantric sexuality? Or how did you started with that? How did you hear first about it?
Well, I realized recently that before I even started studying or heard even the word Tantra or Tao or any sacred sexuality practices, I actually practiced it all my life, even as a child. I always felt that whatever we do is guided by something bigger, something deeper. And of course, growing up and sensing nature, especially nature was my biggest teacher, because you could feel energy of water, of fire, of wood, of stones, of people, of places, right? And of course, you taught and conditioned by your families and society what is good, what is bad, what's acceptable, what's not. But to me, it always came down to high vibe and low vibe. I always was guiding myself through life by feeling what's energetically in alignment with me and what's not. And of course, you sometimes go to low vibe to understand that it's not your realm of creation or where you should be. And like this, I learned about energy. And when I grew up and I started dating and started having sex, I was also implementing the same idea that certain things, certain people, certain practices are high vibe and certain are low vibe. You know, also music, also films, also intentions we set. And that guided me to spirituality. I started learning about spirituality and healing, first of all. I went to India, and India was an eye-opener for me in my 20s, I would say. No, in my 30s even. It was an eye-opener where I learned Reiki and different modalities to work with energy. And even before I was studying Tantra, I would implement the same principles in my lovemaking with my partners. That sexuality and sex is not just physiological phenomena. It's a purely energetic phenomena where, you know, when people connect, especially when we're teenagers, I have a teenage daughter. I have to be so aware now how I teach her, because I missed so much when I was growing up on this realm. It was just time of, you know, trial and error, so many mistakes. That are good. Maybe she should do her mistakes too. But what I realized, when we are hormonal, right? We are having this rush of hormones, and sexuality is beautiful and natural, and it's not dogmatic for me. It was never dogmatic, even though I grew up in a very dogmatic family, very conservative family, that it's something low vibe and dirty and forbidden and shouldn't be paid attention to. I always was a very sensual, sexual being, that I would feel sexuality and sensuality in everything around me. I could be turned on by a tree or a cloud or an ocean, you know. So I was feeling all that, and I thought, how can I work with it? How can I guide it? What is this? You know, what is this I'm feeling? So I was guided naturally to first Taoist practices. So I remember 20 years ago, this book came across in Deutsch called Tao der Frau. I don't remember who the author is. And everything was like a revelation for me. Like, boom, this is exactly what I'm feeling. This is exactly what I had to know, you know. This is
download.
Yeah, I was like, I knew it already, you know, already.
Yeah.
I knew it. So for me, it wasn't new. Maybe in my past lives, I was a Taoist master. I don't know, a tantrika, probably. But it came naturally to me, and I started reading and studying and later practicing. And when I met Jason, we started teaching it.
Yeah.
So it's a long journey, and Tantra. I will talk later about Tantra and Tantric Sexuality. These are two different things. But I would say I started with Tantric and Taoist sexuality first, because this is a big part of our lives, sexuality. And we anyway doing it, and we anyway loving it. And it's anyway a huge driving force in our life, right? So how can we make it more spiritual? That was my goal.
Yeah, great. Can you maybe tell me what you understand about spirituality? Because spirituality, everyone has another a condition what this word means. Maybe you can describe me quickly what you understand under spirituality.
For me, it's simple. It's connection with the spirit.
Yeah, that's great. Great.
Anything I do, all the practices I choose, they either connect or disconnect me with.
Yeah.
And anyway, you cannot be disconnected with the spirit. You're breathing, so you're already spiritual by nature. But sometimes we're
losing connection,
lost in our minds.
Yeah,
we're lost in our minds and in our egos and in our thoughts of who we are and what life is. So for me, spirituality and spiritual practices are intended to bring us back into the realization of who we truly are.
Yeah. Okay, so let's jump to the next question that I wrote down. Can you explain what tantric sexuality is and how it differs from traditional sexuality or the sex life that we know? I would call it now maybe like animalic sex. What is the difference to conscious, spiritual, sacred sexuality?
Well, it's all sacred. And in my view, I don't like to demonize or condemn anything. And Tantrikas and Tantra was created in order to implement everything around us for spiritual purpose. There's nothing condemned. Everything can be spiritual. It all depends on two things, basically. Tantra comes down to two things. And I love comparing it to this magic number P, in math. Magic number P, which is never ending and never repetitive. So it's infinite, basically. And so for me, magic number P in Tantra, it's presence and intention. So if you're present and you have an intention, a certain intention to guide your energy, that's Tantra. Everything is Tantra. And you can cook in a tantric way, you can dance in a tantric way, you can work in a tantric way, and you can make love in a tantric way.
Yeah, because this is exactly, most people know Tantra just in a sexual way. They just think it's everything about sex, but it's actually, is it a philosophy or what is it exactly?
Well, Tantra is an ancient Indian philosophy that came from around 6th century AD, I think. Well, there are many sources arguing how old is Tantra. There is what we modern people now, hearing about Tantra and going to Tantra workshops, have to understand that there is Tantra and there is Neo-Tantra. And what we now today perceive as a tantric sexuality or sacred sexuality or tantric massage, or all these workshops, they are all under this umbrella of Neo-Tantra, which is, as the name says, a new and more modern, more westernized approach to ancient Indian Tantra. Because Tantra is actually it's an amazing philosophy. I love studying it. It was conceived as kind of rebellious philosophy away from Vedas, and it comes from Tantra. Name comes from Tantras because those ancient texts called Tantras or Agamas. Agamas translated from Sanskrit as revelations. So those texts were revealed to those rishis and sages who were writing them as a new way of approaching reality and dealing with reality, not being separated from spirituality. Like, how can we live our normal life, our householder path, not sitting in a cave and meditating and trying to reach enlightenment? How can we be spiritual and enlightened while living this life to the fullest? That's why I love it so much. And when tantras, original tantras, were translated into English by British, by the British, when India was still colonial, 19th century, it was, widely misinterpreted and reduced to
sexual practices.
Cult. It's like a cult, and it's thought it's like, orgiastic and only sexual, even though sexuality and sexual practices is just 1% of everything that tantras talk about. In some tantras, there were sexual practices as devotional practices, where people would engage in sexual practices to reach enlightenment as well and higher states of consciousness. It was a certain type of worship. But Neo-Tantra, of course, infused it with many different New Age ideas, esoteric movements, and extracted mostly sexual aspect and brought to the West. And that's why in the West, people think Tantra is sex. even though it's not so. It's just a little part, like a drop from the ocean of what Tantra is. And we teach also, Jason has extensive lectures on difference between Tantra and Neo-Tantra on our platform. So there are whole lectures and courses about it. But today's topic is Tantric Sexuality, so which is, for me, same as sacred sexuality, because there is this question, what's the difference between sacred and tantric, and as you said, normal? I mean, well, big difference. For me, tantric and sacred pretty much the same, because Tantra is a sacred philosophy, and sacred means devotional to God, devotional to something higher than us, to spirit, right? So it is spiritual. And I would put them in the same category, tantric sexuality and sacred sexuality, but it does differ from normal physiological sexuality in the terms of how do we approach it? You know, how do we practice it? Sex is natural and beautiful and healthy, and sexual energy is it's undeniable. You cannot restrict it, you cannot suppress it, and we all see, and with the world's religions and throughout the history, what happens when we try to repress it. So Tantra was talking about not repressing anything, but using it, right? Harnessing it. And of course, Taoist practice is all about that too. How do we harness this energy that is so powerful that it creates life? How can we use it for creativity, for manifestation, for health, for attracting what we want, because it's magnetic?
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing, you know, about when I learned first about sacred sexuality, Tantra sexuality, that because I guess in our society we carry so much shame about sexuality, especially women. We are programmed deeply, deeply with all this shame around sexuality. And then this new perspective for me, that it is actually, it can be a spiritual practice. It can elevate me. It maybe can enlighten me in ways, you know. And I can use sexuality as manifestation tool and all those things. I was like, oh, no, really? Wow. So it's such a revolution, no?
It is. And I'm so happy that Neo-Tantra actually came to the West, because there's some negative judgment about Neo-Tantra and how it's promiscuous and how it's, it can be. It's all about the magic P number for me. Yeah. If you present an intention is right, what do you intend with it? Then there's nothing shameful. If it's just to have an intercourse and orgasm, it's one intention, you know. But if you use it in order to expand your awareness and increase your capacity of joy, not just in this moment while you're having sex, but capacity of joy for your life, for everything around you. And Tantra is translated from Sanskrit as Tan is expansion, Tra is the tool. So basically, Tantra is a tool for expansion. And it uses many other tools like mantra, right? It's man is mind, tra is a tool. So it's how do we control the mind, and yantra and other things. There are many, many, many practices that are fantastic in Tantra. So what do we expand? You know, I was thinking like tool of expansion. What do we expand? And if you start thinking about it, there's so much you can expand, and it's not limited to sex. Yeah. You can expand your awareness about everything around you. Yeah. And because sexuality is such a powerful force in our lives and such a present force, we anyway want it, we're anyway doing it, we're anyway seeking it, right? It drives us. Why don't we direct it in a certain way, and make it a prayer, make it a spiritual practice, make it meditation? You can meditate on your cushion in front of your Buddha or candle, or you can meditate while making love.
Yeah, that's such a wild new perspective, I think, for a lot of women that are listening, because it was for me too. And also, what I have to add, why I found this sexuality, or why I was looking for new teachings on sexuality, or what I knew about sexuality, was after I gave birth, we had an amazing sex life again, and more connected than ever, because we grew so close through our rebirth, and it was the most beautiful, most connected moment for us as a couple.
Of course, it's so intimate. It's
So
most
intimate.
you can experience between man and a woman, bringing
So
new life that came
yeah,
through you
yes,
together into this world. This is for me the ultimate prayer, giving birth.
yeah, so beautiful. And then we had such amazing, beautiful sex. And then maybe like after 2 months, my sexual desire just disappeared.
Mm.
I know it's also because the woman concentrates then fully on the baby. The whole energy goes to the baby, and you give so much love, and you have so much contact, body contact all the time, and you are so needed and so used, also your breast and your whole body.
Very
And I
intense.
know it's also because of that, but still I was like, I was so kind of disappointed, and so I thought, no, I don't want to accept it. I want to have, even that I'm used mostly as a mother now. I also want to be this, still be this hot and beautiful, sexy wife, and have a
You still
beautiful
are.
sex life. Yeah,
You
yeah, but
still
I
are.
also
Hot and
wanted the.
beautiful and sexy is one thing. You are that already. I mean, you cannot change that. But
But also to have the sexual experience. And somehow, I don't know why, but somehow it felt like my body was just shutting down uh, to the sexual energy. I don't, very hard to explain, but I think a lot of women experience that after they have given birth.
of course, I had the same. I had
Yeah.
absolutely the same. I was breastfeeding my daughter for 2 years.
Oh yeah.
It felt like my body was a holy vessel just for that. And all my sexual energy was, what is breastfeeding, Karen? It is an extremely intimate sexual experience.
It is. It is.
And in this sense, sexuality is not reduced to intercourse. Again, this is the energy that feeds life.
Yeah.
And we are very sexual with our babies. And of course, it's so powerful, and it takes all of your attention. And our days are structured. We go to bed, we wake up, there is, night and day. So we can give as much. And it's sexual energy, or Shakti, is limitless, but our capacity to produce it and to generate it and give it further and store it and use it for different things is limited. Because give yourself a break, you're fresh mama, of course. And so many women also experience hormonal changes, and that's biochemical processes in the body that are so powerful. We are also this body, we are this machine, this temple that has its needs as well, to recover, to recuperate, to fix things. So of course all this used there too. So it's temporary, and if you're conscious about it, and if you rest, and if you're center, and you're present with yourself and with this stage of life, which is so precious and so fleeting and so short, it's going to be gone in a blink of an eye. Just enjoy it to the fullest. And your conscious partner, and I know Ollie is a very conscious partner, he can be your fort, and wait for you.
Yeah, it was really, at the beginning, it was because you can be conscious about this or that theme, but in sexuality we had both grow a lot in consciousness in sexuality. And because I think a lot of women that are also under pressure from the men, because the men want to have sex,
yeah,
and because he already feels kind of bit left out, because you all the time with the baby, and and then you have no sex anymore, and then the man is kind of panicking, right? Like
it's a very difficult stage for couples
yeah.
to go through, and conscious couples, and that's what I define or distinguish conscious and unconscious. Unconscious, anything, not just couples, is when we are ruled by external, and conscious when we draw attention inward and choose intention and being present with what is and give it direction, you know. And of course, if there is love, if there is support, if there is kindness and compassion to whatever mortal human conditions we experience, and there are many, but you know, gosh, giving birth triggered so much in me, so much my childhood traumas. I had to process so much by just witnessing the baby and reparenting myself in the process. It's intense. And also the father has to reparent himself in the process, because it's a new life and you look at life through the eyes of this fresh baby. So it's intense, but as a couple, because you love each other, because you are sexual with each other, I mean sensual with each other, and it's not necessarily while having sex. You can be sensual holding hands, or giving a hug, or giving each other a massage, or cook together, or just eye gaze, or talk, or ask.
Exactly.
What
But
do you
that's
think?
yeah, but that's missing in our society. So I mean, maybe after some year in most relationships, I would say that you lose these little things, right? That you do at the beginning all the time, like a kiss there and a kiss there and a hug there and a nice word or a whisper in the ear, right? And then kind of it goes away.
Life takes over. Like life takes over. And what I love about sacred sexuality practices, one of the main pillars of sacred sexuality are rituals. That's why we need to take time to create those containers for us, for our love, for our interconnectedness, and how do we express each other with each other. And of course, you know, when you're a parent, when you have 3 kids and you have work and projects, you have 24 hours a day, and from those 24 hours a day, maybe 10 hours you work, or 8, or whatever, you just sometimes swept away and you don't have a minute, and you try it, you need to rest, and you have to, and we women tend to so many things of everybody that I was suffering from it too in my relationships. And also now life is so busy, and it's difficult to make that time where we really set aside 3 hours and just be together. It's luxury. What I teach and what I found out for myself is this shortcut. I call it a shortcut.
Okay.
And it's again comes to this magic number P.
Okay.
Presence. If I am present right now, right here, and I'm not dragged by my mind and my fears and how things have to be, attack me and take hold of me, and I'm a victim, I am present with what really matters. And what really matters, I mean, what really matters? Love. Love really matters. And if you're in love with yourself, first of all, and then with your husband or partner, with your baby, with your job, with your life, with your community, you do the right thing. I mean, this is your ritual. This is your prayer. Your life can be your meditation and your prayer every day if you're present. That's the skill that all the traditions teach how to master. It's not that easy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's so interesting. And you know, and me and Oliver, we had a lot of discussions, and we found out we got more conscious in our sexuality. So he identified like his worth, you know, when he has a lot of sex, what we had always before, he's worth something, and he feels loved, and he feels the most connected with me. If we don't have regularly sex, he misses all those things. He feels not loved. He feels not, especially not connected to me, he says, right? So, and for me, it was when I looked deeper into my sexuality, there was a lot of shame down there. And also from my mother and from my my ancestors, right, women in my lineage. And I started to heal over there, and he had to realize that I'm not responsible for his sexuality, how he feels, right? What he connects. I'm not because he made me responsible for that he feels good or that he feels connected to me, right? And we discovered all those aspects also because we talked with you and Jason, and we learned already from you a bit, and we started to read books about it, but still very on the surface. But we could already discover all those things. And then he came home with all these new practices that he learned from Jason. So yeah, that's just the point where we are at the moment, actually. And because I'm very busy mostly with the teachings around babies and children and what I mostly teach about or talk about on my channel. But sacred sexuality is something that is so important, and I think it's so important that we grow a bigger consciousness in our society, especially for our children, that they learn from when they are baby, from the beginning, the difference, what we understand in our society about sexuality, what for me is the truth about sexuality, because also all about this pornography, because it's destroying our children.
Yes.
Yeah, and we speak about this at the end one more time. So yeah, that's why I thought I need to invite you, that we can have a talk, that more women learn about it, because women, you are really the roots. You are the roots in your family. You are the leader at home. You program your children, and the knowledge that you have, that what you carry in your aura, you will plant in your children.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's why we have this sacred responsibility to become, as you said, guides and give direction and be conscious ourselves first about love and what is love for us and what is also sexual energy for us, how we use this for us, because Tantra can be practiced there's a very often a question comes, but I don't have a tantric partner. You don't need a partner. You can be tantric yourself. You can be conscious without anybody, just by yourself. And of course, if there are two conscious people come together and they consciously choose their vision for their relationship or for their family, and including their sexuality, then they can create magic. And of course, I always ask our clients or students a very simple question when people come with problems in their sex life or in their relationships. Why do you have sex? If you think about it, why?
That's a good question.
It's simple, right? But people first start saying, it's just the conditioned, or it comes from the mind, not from the heart, or not from their essence. They say, to be connected. This is the most often what I hear, to be connected. What you just said, Oliver wants to be connected. And that's legitimate. It's not, of course, we want to be connected. And how more intimately we can be connected if not through sex as a couple, right? And intimacy. Well, there can be sex that people have sex and they're not connected at all. It depends what kind of sex and what kind of intention is behind what you're doing. So some want to feel validated. Some want to manipulate. Some want to use sex for so many reasons. Why do we have sex? And that's the difference. Sometimes it's just physiological, like teenagers, they're full of those hormones and they don't even think, why do they have it? They just have it because they cannot not have it, right? They're just driven by nature, which is also natural and fine. But that's what I'm so on the same page with you. How we as mothers, and I'm having a 13-year-old in my house, how we as mothers teach our children to deal with this sexual energy that is so powerful? And how do we teach them to direct it? And how do we teach them to look at it and see it as not what's in the movies, what's in the porn, what's in the media, social media? It's all so misguiding and so damaging for our souls, basically, inherently. It's a big topic for me as well. And, you know, I am writing books for children on mindfulness and meditation and how to stay present and how to be conscious. And I have a big project coming, and I know it will come. I'm now putting all my direction there, because inspired by my daughter as well, to create a program on conscious sexuality for teenagers.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
For young people. Yeah. And of course, it's very difficult to teach that, because I was researching so much and it's not available widely. Why? Because they're children, and teaching sex to children is very heikel, as we say in German, right? And it has to come through parents. So it's basically schools, they have sex ed, and they tell them how to use condoms and what is, you know, vulva, what is penis, all that they learn from books on sex ed, but they do not teach them sacredness of sexual energy. Exactly. And what can be done with it. And that's a responsibility of mothers. Exactly. In my understanding, mothers. Yes. I'm so passionate to educate women, exactly, as you are. Yeah. Because we women, we are priestesses of this.
Yeah. And we hold the power for it.
Yes. So at the moment, well, all I can teach my daughter, of course, I can tell her, you know, we have this Art of Conscious Love course for adults on our platform with all the techniques and practices and philosophy. It could be used for teenagers too, but there is one but. Teenagers are different from adults in the sense that it's also new and exciting for them, and they put fresh, and they're full of hormones, and they don't have experience to deal with their bodies yet. They're just learning. So it's a completely new approach needed here, and I'm learning it. My daughter is my teacher here. I'm seeing how she relates and what she thinks about, and she's gonna be my what is it called? Versuchskaninchen.
Yeah. But rat, lab rat.
Yeah, lab rat, where I can really see what works, what doesn't. But my advice to mothers who don't have access to this, or don't want to go that path, or didn't learn themselves yet, because they have to start from themselves first. And that's wonderful that we're doing it now, so women can start reading and learning and talking about it and practicing by themselves and seeing themselves as goddesses and priestesses and holy temples, and that sexual energy is not purely physiological. But what we can do right now is to teach our children to be conscious. Yeah, absolutely. To teach them to be conscious about everything, including their sexuality.
And we teach them by being it ourselves.
Exactly.
That's how we teach our children. I mean, on a certain age, for sure, we can also talk, but okay, talking is just something additional, I would say, to give them a bigger perspective or to see the whole picture maybe. But what they really take from you is what you carry in your own aura, in your own energy field. That's Absolutely. What they really take, and that's what they really will do. The other things maybe they have in their mind, but it's not embodied, right?
Exactly. We need to embody it before we can teach.
Yeah.
I do not believe in non-embodied teachers. There's so many teachers out there that teach all sorts of things, but I can feel when they're embodied or not. Not just me. A lot of people can feel, you too. And that's
absolutely. And I have two stepsons, which most of you know, and they are now 11 and 13. And they came into contact with pornography when they were 9. So the older was 9 and the smaller was 7. Imagine that. I think this is what most parents not really see, how early they come in contact with pornography, so early. And that's the first picture that they see, and then they go in somebody's they go in somebody's home and see the first pornographic movie, and they think that's sex, that's sexuality.
And that's the damage. That's the damage of pornography.
That's a big damage.
You know,
and, sorry, go
sorry,
ahead.
go ahead. It's a very charged topic for me.
Yeah, for me too. It's like, especially when it started with the boys there, I was like, oh my God, what? Okay.
Yeah, my daughter, I thought my
research.
daughter also was the same age, like 9 or 10. Exactly. And that's it. For me, it was like a crash of this beautiful, innocent soul into the darkness, because for me, pornography is a demon. It's a demon. It's a demon that feeds on human suffering disguised as pleasure.
Yes, exactly.
And it's now finally gets more and more awareness from science, from global organizations like UNICEF and World Health Organization, where they start developing programs by protecting our children from its use, from its accessibility, because, you know, porn has this, as they say, I studied so much about it because I have a history of porn addiction in my family, and my relationship was ruined by porn. And I studied a lot about it, and I had to come to terms with it, with this phenomenon, why it exists and what it does. Because in my 20s, I also was watching porn films and thinking that's sex, you know, I had no idea. But again, I always felt the low vibe of it, and the energy was wrong, and it was not in alignment with me. So I felt my aura would be dirty from consuming that. But if you think about it nowadays with internet, because I grew up with what was it, even videotapes, you know, videotapes and magazines. But now the danger of pornography is 100 times more, because it has the 3 A's, right? It's accessible, it's available. I mean, available in terms of affordable, it's free, you can find it anywhere, and it's anonymous.
Yeah.
So it's the worst drug ever. And it's so addictive. And what it does to your brain, there's so much science already existing, what it does to young people's brain. There is this beautiful TED Talk called Brain on Porn. I really recommend, with all the...
I will put the link down in the description.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. And how it messes up the hormones and neurotransmitters and dopamine production, and how it wires the brain. It's pure poison. And so many young boys, mostly, you know,
exactly. Yeah, I saw also a documentary. I will also put the link down there. It's amazing, this documentary, and it's really boys. There was this study, like boys somehow from 9 away, they look every day pornography, and kind of 99% of all the boys. Imagine that. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, and those are our fathers and lovers and people who rule the world. Imagine. And those who teach our girls or engage with our girls. And this is, I'm on a holy war against porn, because it's also evil for me. Not because it's so addictive, it's a drug, because it supports human trafficking, because it ruins families, because it objectifies women, and it gives to young people ideas of what sexuality and gender roles are, which are completely wrong, because it comes down to only physical expression of the
it's mostly
chakras, I would say.
Yeah,
I don't download chakras.
It's mostly how do you say gewalttätig, how do you say?
Yeah, it's full of violence.
Exactly. It's mostly full of violence. It's like, no, I mean, the picture that it gives, we have to make another Zoom call about this topic. Maybe when
Yeah, I
you're
can
a
talk
bit
about it a
further,
lot. Yeah.
when you're a bit
But
further
I'm
on.
with you on this. I'm on the same
Yeah.
page with you. Yeah, we
Yeah,
have
great.
to
I
bring
think we have to
awareness.
do a separate video about it because
Yeah.
it's a big theme, and for me, it's so important. It's a thing that very close on my heart, and more mothers really get conscious about this, have more awareness about it, and also know their absolute influence on their children, that they really hold the power to change those, dogmas. Can I call this dogmas? I don't know.
No, it's just to protect children from coming in contact with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And making them clear that Pornhub, for example, promotes rape and
Exactly.
children's and child sex and
Exactly.
revenge sex and human
Yeah.
trafficking. All that, it's evil. It's
Yeah.
evil.
Yeah. It's horrible. Okay, good. So let's go back to
Go
our
to something more
original
uplifting.
topic here.
Let's
But I
increase the
think,
vibe.
but somehow when it's about sexuality, for me as a mother, it's a big theme. It's always kind of here in my awareness. But yeah, and I think a
But,
lot of women are very interested in this topic as
but
well.
to finish this topic, I just give one hint or one piece of advice how I dealt with it when I caught my daughter, who was just shown by her friend, is not to give this demon even more power by demonizing it. That's what I did. I after I collected my composure and deep breath, and it's just important to talk to your children and explain that this has nothing to do with sex, because those are actors. They're acting. This is not what sex is about. And that's what I had long talks with my daughter.
Okay, yeah. So we will do a separate Zoom about this theme.
Yeah.
So coming back to our original topic, maybe you can now explain a bit, how does Tantra sex look like?
Tantric sex, how does it look like? Well, there are many ways how it could look like, but as I already mentioned before, it comes to awareness. It comes to a devotional aspect to it, where we treat each other as spiritual beings, that we do not connect only with bodies or maybe minds and hearts. We connect with our souls. So we view each other as energy, not just bodies, and we treat each other as deities. It's in a traditional tantra. Also, in tantras, it was written about polarities of yin and yang, plus and minus, Shiva, Shakti, feminine, masculine. We all consist of those polarities. Taoist practices deal with exactly the same polarities, the polarity of energy. And how do we unite that plus and minus within us? That's why self-practice is so important in tantric sexuality approach, because if you don't know how to balance yourself, how can you be balanced with another? And when you learn how to balance your own Shiva Shakti within you, then you can bring it together with your partner and then balance it together. And when you unite those energies together and you together give it intention, and you being present, and you using tantric practices, that there are many. The most common tantric practice that is used is breath work. We're breathing a lot in tantric lovemaking, and it's mostly there are also positions, there are also visualizations, but it all comes to present.
Yeah, and why do you use the breath, especially in tantric sexuality?
Because breath guides energy. Because breath is the fastest and the healthiest and the most powerful way to be present, because breath is always present. And when you connect your mind to your breath, you guide energy. And if you also add intention, why are we having sex? What I was asking before, why? Intention guides attention of our mind. And attention guides energy. And when we work with energy, as many teachers say, where mind goes, energy flows, you can direct it to expand your capacity to orgasm, expand your capacity to guide that energy. And the main difference between normal sex and tantric sex is that normal sex, normal intercourse or interaction between sexual partners is very linear upwards, like it's a peak experience. We accumulate energy, we rush, and then we explode and it's down. You know, it's always directed towards release. Tantric sexuality, orgasm is not important. We don't even think about orgasm, but we harness orgasmic energy and we expand orgasmic energy in a way that we are, yes, using different breath techniques and practices to ride the waves of pleasure. More, not like this, like I explained, it's more like this, you know, and you go down and up. And yeah, it takes hours sometimes. That's why we need time to do these practices. But again, I told you it can be also short and sweet if it's present and it's full of reverence. It's also tantric. But if you want to expand and use tantra as a tool to expand,
and what's like
orgasm, I'll finish. So you can use that orgasmic energy with your intention and direct it in your life. You can power, it's like an energy and electricity that you can power up the plant with it. You know, you can manifest with it. You can use it in paintings. You can use it in your writing.
Can we say that when I orgasm, when I manifest, when I think on that thing that I want to manifest in my life, is that how I can use this energy?
Absolutely. It's intention. It's where you guide it, you know, very often. And I used to do it since forever, before I even read about it. And when I read about it, I was like, wow, I was downloading, or I just felt it. When you self-pleasure, we women, I don't generalize, but when we self-pleasure, how I like to do it, I like to take time, and also not just to, you know, have my orgasm, go to bed, and do, you know, I want to relax and release the stress. But when you self-pleasure, intentionally making love to all of you, not reduced to your genitals, you are working with this energy and you harness this energy, and then you guide this energy to, let's say, if I feel like I'm getting sick sometimes, like I'm gonna get sick, I go and self-pleasure and I guide orgasmic energy into recovery. I just send it to my cells and I power them up, so I'm healthy again. And next day I'm healthy. That's how I prevent my colds. Or beauty. You can send it to your skin. You know, it's your beauty routine. That's why tantrikas most.
That's why you look so beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, when people ask me, how comes you don't do anything to your skin? You know, you're 48 and you don't dye your hair. I attribute to beauty intentionally because I guide it. I guide it to my skin. I guide it to my beauty, to my eyes. You can guide it to your heart when you're heartbroken. Very often when I'm heartbroken, I don't start loving myself and giving that love to me, and then playing with that and feeling loved by myself and guiding it to my broken heart and mend it. You can mend with it. It's so beautiful what you can do with this. And that's also in lovemaking. Partners, let's say you had an argument or there is a disconnection on a certain level, you can connect and then breathe together and look into each other's eyes and tell each other, why are you doing this and why are you actually together? And then guide this, write this together, you know, and expand together and reach those states of magic that you don't reach. You just, let's say, fuck. You know.
So then we could say that the sexual energy is just very, very high spiritual energy, or how would you describe it,
It can be spiritual. Everything, I told you, everything, for me, everything is spiritual. But
Yeah.
if in Tantra, they speak a lot about chakras, concept of chakras, right?
Okay.
We have different energy centers in our body that have different vibrations. So sexual energy, or kundalini, it's the same. It's dormant in our base chakra, in Muladhara. And then when we awaken it, it's like a serpent starts rising upwards. And that's this sublimation that Tantric is talking about, what Tantra practitioners talking about. And that's one of the main practices, how we guide energy, sublimation. We do not reduce it only to the first two chakras, like sacral chakra and root chakra, where it's most present and most potent, and that's what people associate with sex. It's just this tension down there, and I have to release it. But if you guide it consciously, intentionally up to your heart, you open up your heart and to your throat, you sing together, you chant mantras together, you speak your truth. Then you guide it to your third eye. You get insights, inspirations, creativity. And then imagine two people do it together during lovemaking, they create this pool of expanding both of their energies, becoming that mini universe. I get goosebumps when I'm talking about. And then you can really open up your crown chakra and become one with God. It's like making love to God eventually.
Wow. It sounds amazing, and for me it sounds amazing, something I want to experience. But it has to.
I'm sure you did.
Yeah.
I'm sure everybody had glimpses of it,
Yeah,
more or
yeah,
less.
yeah.
But if you use it as art, if you use it as science, it's a science basically. If you take the tools and really start practicing, you become better and better and better, and it becomes more and more effortless.
Yeah.
Then it just happens.
Yeah. I experience it in other parts in my life, especially when I create art, when you're connected and the energy is flowing through you, right? This creation, wow, so powerful. But for me, especially to also experience it in sexuality, that's really like something, a goal is the wrong word, but something I really would like to experience. Yeah. Because I think it will be very, very, very healing for me and my whole lineage, women lineage.
It is. It is absolutely, because we women were so dominated and suppressed in our sexuality through eons, because men felt how powerful we women can be. And Shakti for us is limitless.
Yeah.
Tantra, they say, for men it's limited, for women it's limitless. That's why we're able to create humans and bring them to life.
So women, I hope you enjoyed the topic and our talk as much as I did, and there is so much more to discover. My gosh, I mean, also me for myself, we read like 2 books, and I talked with Dalia and my husband with her husband, but it's a huge philosophy, and it goes so deep. But there is
it's
so
a tip
much
of an iceberg, you need to experience it. Talking about it is one thing, but once you start doing it, you will experience it, and Shakti will guide you.
That's beautifully said. So thank you, Dalia, very much for your time and all your wisdom that you shared with us women. And now tell us, where can we find you, your work, and I will also put everything in the description. But tell us about.
We have a platform called the apex.life, where it's our coaching platform, because Jason and I, we're also life coaches, and we coach also couples on tantric sexuality and conscious sexuality, and as well as yogic arts and sciences and qigong, breathwork, meditation, many topics. But we have a subscription called Yoga Plus Tantra, which you could join for a very small philosophy and study a lot of philosophy and
Yeah,
practices
maybe
there.
tell us the fee. We talk about numbers here, women talk about numbers.
It's 35 euros per month, so it's not much. And it's unlimited viewing, and first week is for free. You can just go and see if you like it. And as well as we have online courses. One course is called The Art of Conscious Love, where Jason and we teach together. It was during Corona time, so it was in Zoom online teaching, but we show there a lot of, we talk about everything we talk today as a couple, as well as we have a tantric course where Jason is teaching. There are lots of lectures about philosophy and metaphysics of Tantra, as well as he created a course specifically for men called Apex Men on male sexuality and all the practices men can do to empower themselves and be more present and more conscious and more powerful with their women.
Yeah, great. That sounds amazing.
Welcome to contact me as well. Personally, I can answer all the questions. And we have also social media, Instagram, Facebook. We're there.
Perfect. I will put everything in the description, so you will find Dalia, no question. So yeah, thank you very much again, from my heart to yours.
From my heart to yours. Yeah. Thanks for inviting me and talking to a beautiful community, and any way I can contribute.
Oh yeah, maybe one important thing. Do you speak also German? Because I have a lot of German. Yes, okay, great. Because I will put here with subtitles, but if someone wants to work with you, that they also know that you speak also German.
It can be in German. Yeah, it could be in 4 languages. I could teach.
Great. Okay. Yeah, thank you very much.
Well,
thank you.
My pleasure, Karin. Have a wonderful weekend.
Yeah, thank you. You too.